Hello, my name is Wendy Myers. Thank you so much for joining us for the Live to 110 podcast, where I give you advice to maximize your health, detox your body and your home so you can live a long, healthy, disease-free life. Detox is one of my very favorite subjects, and today we're going to have Nate Bellino on the show to talk about his business called HomeLab, where he has a monitor that you can put in your home. You can look at the results of the toxin levels in your home on an app and get a free consult and a checklist of things to do to reduce the toxins in your home. And there's so many tips we're going to give you today on the show to improve ventilation in your home and some of the top low-hanging fruit that you can do today to reduce toxins in your home. A lot of these things seem very elementary, but people just aren't doing them. They're not aware of them. So such a great show today. I have learned so much from using HomeLab about the toxin levels that I have in my home, and have been able to fix a lot of different things that I just kind of just wasn't paying attention to or weren't really aware were a huge source of toxins in the home. So even the detox queen over here, I had a lot of improvement that I needed to do in my own home, and I'm recommending HomeLab to all of my Mineral Power clients so that they can reduce the amount of toxins in their home so they don't get into their bodies. So check out today's podcast with Nate Bellino. Before we do that, we have to do the disclaimer. Please keep in mind this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or health condition and is not a substitute for professional medical advice. The Live to 110 podcast is solely informational in nature, so please consult your health practitioner before engaging in anything that we suggest today on the show. My new book, Limitless Energy, is available on Amazon. And in this book, it's all about how to reduce toxins in your body to end exhaustion and chronic fatigue. And a big part of my research into toxins has been what toxins make us tired, what metals interfere in mitochondrial function, which make our body's energy. Our mitochondria are little organelles in our cells that produce ATP or energy. And there's a lot of different metals that interfere in this process. And one of the big reasons people are so tired, I notice in my practice and thousands of clients that I've seen that their number one complaint is fatigue. So I set out to discover why and reveal all of that in my book, Limitless Energy, that's available right now on Amazon. It's only available in Kindle right now. The paperback will be out soon, so hold tight for that. Our guest today, Nate Bellino, is the founder of HomeLab, HomeLab.com. He is certified in health home evaluation and carries a degree in energy and the environment from Duke University. For over a decade, he's been working to create healthier, more efficient homes across the country. You can learn more about Nate Bellino at HomeLab.com. Nate, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Wendy. Appreciate it.
Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about you and how you got into the health space?
Yeah, absolutely. So started out in working with healthy, efficient homes across the country through state-run programs. I've been doing that for the last decade. But what really brought this home was when my wife had contracted and successfully beat cancer twice over this decade. And in trying to create a healthy environment for us, both during and after treatment, it made me realize that it was just way too difficult to have a healthy environment for the average person, just between the lack of knowledge out there, the lack of understanding what's actually going on in their environment. And so I decided to go ahead and create HomeLab to help raise awareness of the issue, try and make it easier to understand what was going on, and then provide some low cost but also very effective solutions as we talk to people about it.
Yeah, and I think that's so true. I mean, there's such a huge learning curve in learning about toxins, learning about what could potentially be a source of toxin in your home. And it's things that you don't really realize. It's interesting, when I first started using the HomeLab, you so graciously sent me one, and I set it up, and I found out what toxins were in my home, and you get this little checklist of what to do. And I just didn't really get it because I have a gas burning stove and the vent broke like years ago. And I always wonder, like when I'm cooking, there's just these fumes and I just get kind of nauseated and I have to open up all the windows in my home. And I just wasn't kind of putting it together, and here I am, I'm supposed to be a health expert, detox expert. But there's so many little things that even for me clued me into things I can be doing in my own home to make it safer and healthier for my family. And I want to thank you for that.
Appreciate it. Yeah, no.
So how did you first get involved? I mean, you might have already answered the question, but how did you first getting involved with creating healthy homes? Like when did you start HomeLab and what that all look like?
Yeah, so we started HomeLab back in 2014. And, first there were really two trends that we were wanting to capitalize on. One was we realized that just home characteristics in general could let you know whether or not your home and your environment was set up for success. And so once we understood that, then we wanted to understand, okay, what is actually going on inside your environment? Most of the pollutants and toxins are invisible. Many of them you can't smell or notice. And so a number of low-cost monitors were coming out to actually tell you, okay, these are the pollutants inside your home, where you can actually track and monitor over time what was happening as you cooked, for example, and as you did other activities. And also whenever you brought different things inside the home, you could see what if there were any toxins associated with, if there was any off-gassing, or if it was doing other things that may be impacting your exposure to known toxins, known pollutants that had an impact on health. And so we combined these two together to where you can get a monitor to see what's inside your home, as well as go through a whole home profile of how your home is set up. And then that allowed us to put together, okay, this is where the problem areas are, and these are the really easy things that you can do, prioritized and said very clearly with making it easy to then act on them.
Yeah. And so let's tell the listeners what your system looks like. And I think it's really inexpensive. I mean, I really thought something like this would be, a lot more, like triple or even much more than that in price, because of the information that you get is so valuable. And so, so you sent me, it's like a little monitor, it looks like a little station, almost like a little cube or whatnot. You just place it in your home. And so tell us a little bit more, like how does it monitor? How do you get the results for that and whatnot?
Yeah, absolutely. So we send, as you said, a monitor inside a home, and then that connects to the Wi-Fi inside your home, and then that relays the information on the different pollutants, so particulates, VOCs, and other gases, as well as humidity. And then we can see what the pollutant and toxin level is inside a home. And then we also, and that is set up through our app. And then you can also view it online. And then either online or through your app, you can set up your home profile. And then what it does is so our tool takes that information, both pieces of those piece of information, and then it creates a healthy home plan, and focusing on activities and other projects or other things that can reduce your exposure inside your home. And then we have all of the information around why this is important, what's happening, why the air is, moving the way it is and getting polluted and getting, having toxins come inside, and then what to do about it. And that's the key thing. It's great to provide information about the pollutants and toxins, but the first question is always going to be, how do I get rid of them, or how do I reduce these levels, right? And that's what we wanted to make sure we weren't just saying, here is how bad the environment is, good luck, right? We wanted to make sure that we were providing guidance and support, so it wasn't something to be fearful of, or something that you could feel defeated by. And there are very easy things that you can do low-cost things and other items that make a big difference on your environment. And we can see the impact of that through the monitor.
Yeah, and I like what you said about that it's very easy for people to kind of feel overwhelmed about their toxic environment. I'm definitely a Debbie Downer about this, talking about it. And people can easily feel overwhelmed because there are so many toxins in our environment. When you start learning about it, you can definitely feel overwhelmed or anxious or something of that nature. But what I want to do and what you're doing is giving people tools and advice and things that they can act on so they can have more control over the toxins that go into their body and in their home, because there's a lot of stuff that you can do about it. So first things first, let's talk about what toxins does a monitor. And you said VOCs, things like that, but let's explain what that is just for anyone who doesn't know what those are.
Yeah, no, great idea. So the two broad categories of pollutants or toxins inside a home are: is it a particle, or is it something physical, or is it a gas? And so when we talk about particles or particulates, we primarily are talking about what's called PM 2.5. And so PM stands for particulate matter, 2.5 stands for 2.5 microns in size. And just to give you an example of how small that is, 2.5 microns is 20 to 30 times smaller than a human hair. And it's the size that matters because it's the size that allows it to get all the way into our lungs. It bypasses the body's natural defense systems, like our nose, our mouth, our throat, where we would normally sneeze or cough out larger particulates. And it gets into our lungs, and it's a known asthma trigger. It is also now seen as contributing to over 6 million deaths worldwide, as identified by the World Health Organization. So, and in one study, they've even put PM 2.5 on par with the health impacts of secondhand smoke. So everybody knows about secondhand smoke. They've had decades of research, decades of awareness campaigns. PM 2.5 is almost the new secondhand smoke, and expect to hear a lot more about it in the years to come. So the monitor picks up PM 2.5 on the particulate side. For gases, it picks up VOCs, or volatile organic compounds. Now, there's thousands of volatile organic compounds. What we're most concerned with are things such as formaldehyde, things such as benzene, acrolein, and nitrogen dioxide. Those are the three primary gas pollutants inside a home that have been associated with health impacts, both primarily chronic in nature, right? And VOCs are primarily an indoor problem. And the volatile organic compounds are coming from off-gassing of different items inside the home. So everyday products, wood, furniture, etc. And so those are the two things we primarily look for.
And carpet is
let's
off-gassing.
not forget about carpet.
Yes, carpet is like one of the worst things you can have in your home. And I know a lot of people have it, but I remove all the carpet from my home and put in bamboo hardwood floors.
Right.
Just because it's renewable material, and just the carpet unfortunately is just so toxic, and it gets mold in it. It just grows so many horrible things. Not to mention it's plastic and just off gases all this stuff. It's in dust. It's just terrible for you.
Yeah. No. And carpet is one of those things inside a home that impact both particulate and VOCs. So because it's effectively plastic, it's going to be off-gassing for years, and the adhesive that they use. And then it's also going to act as a permanent filter for your floor that never gets changed. So all of the particulates, it's essentially particulate storage, right? And as well as a dust mite haven. So for many reasons, soft goods in general and carpet in particular, cause a lot of issues. And so, yeah, so those are the two things that the monitor picks up, in addition to humidity, because humidity can exacerbate the health impacts of both particulates and VOCs, and it can provide a fertile environment for mold growth, which we don't want.
Yes, yes. And so, what is the third thing that it monitors?
So PM 2.5, particulates, VOCs, gases, and humidity.
Okay, great, perfect. Okay, and so what have you found overall in your home environment?
Yeah, so in my home environment and in the thousands of homes across the country that we've been monitoring. So first, I think it's confirmation that of that EPA statement that is well known, or gets a lot of play, where indoor environments or homes in general are 2 to 5 times more polluted than outdoors. And so, the data that we're seeing is not only confirming that, but it's also kind of saying, okay, well, these are the particular issues that we're finding. And so, overall, and it kind of depends. It's not one pollutant or another. It depends on where the home's located, how old the home is, what's inside the home, the lifestyle of the person inside the home as well. And so it's almost not a question of if there are pollutants and you can reduce your exposure. It's more a matter of, okay, well, what type of pollutants and toxins are inside. And then once we know the type, then we can actually know what is going to be most effective at reducing or removing them. So, just to give you a couple examples, I think cooking, you had mentioned, was one. And this is usually very eye-opening, right? I mean, the last thing we want to do is to discourage cooking. It's part of a healthy lifestyle that we want to employ as much as possible, right? At the same time, we need to understand that the pollutants coming from it, as well as the potential health impacts, and we need to manage it accordingly. So cooking and is one. Nighttime accumulation of pollutants, and particularly VOCs. Homes typically get closed up for the night, and so there's less air exchange in the home as a result. And because of this, the VOCs that are off-gassing accumulate and have nowhere to go. And so nighttime accumulation of VOCs is another trend that we see along with cooking pollutants.
Yeah, it's interesting. I read in one of Dr. Sherry Rogers' books that a lot of people that have pain syndromes, that a big factor in that can be the off gas from natural gas and cooking, especially women that are like cooking a lot for their families and they're suffering with pain issues that or any other kind of health issues. The off gas from the natural gas that you're just kind of letting run wild in your home is a big problem for some people, and you can kind of sense that too when I know when I'm cooking, I kind of just I have just a weird feeling, like I don't really feel well, because I know I'm breathing those things in and they're affecting our bodies. Some people might not be kind of tuned into that because you're breathing in toxins that are negatively impacting your body. So really important to have your vent on while you're cooking to at least mitigate the release of that in your home, so everyone's not breathing all that in.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't have said it better myself. And just a couple stats to back that up. So out of homes with gas stoves, if there is no stove fan, or a stove fan that is not vented, or if there's a stove fan that isn't used, 55 to 70% of homes with gas stoves have elevated levels of nitrogen dioxide in their home, as established by the EPA. So, and that's just one of the many pollutants that gas stoves, off-gas soap. There's formaldehyde from the burning. There's potentially carbon monoxide, and then there's the cooking itself, which will produce particulate matter, and gas stoves will also produce particulate matter, as well as VOCs such as acrolein. And so, having the general rule of thumb is cooktop selection is important, with induction being the least polluting cooktop option. Then stove fan usage, making sure you're using it religiously. Then if there's an exhaust fan nearby or a window, those are kind of the secondary methods that you can employ to try and help dilute or remove some of the pollutants as a result.
And you mentioned nitrogen dioxide. What does that do to our body?
Yeah. So, I think so. Nitrogen dioxide is a known asthma trigger for one. It could potentially be a developer of asthma. But then there's also, some of the other health impacts include, headaches, dizziness, nausea, and, long term, the health impacts are, more chronic and therefore more severe in nature. And so, they're still honestly finding out exactly the chronic, issues associated with nitrogen dioxide, but a lot of it has to do with both your respiratory system as well as your brain cognition and clarity, and which is why kind of the nausea and headaches can come from it.
Yeah. So after people find out what toxins they have in their home, then they can measure that. I can see it on their little app on their phone. I love my little app, so I can kind of look at that. And then what is the next step? So if someone buys your system, what do they get next once they find out the level of toxins in their home?
Yeah. So that coupled with setting up your home profile will allow us to see, okay, well, what could the primary sources or causes be, and how well is a home set up to actually prevent as well as remove any of the pollutants. Putting those two together, then you get a healthy home plan and free consultation, phone consultation with one of our building experts to go over exactly what's happening inside your home and give you very specific more detail within the plan on how to go about reducing your level of exposure.
Yeah, it's so great. It's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know exactly what to do to correct the issues in your home. I think it's just fantastic. And I like I said, I personally have found it really, really helpful. And I'm kind of working through all the little steps that I need to be doing in my own home to make it less toxic. But can you buy extra consult time if you want, over and above that free consult?
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, as you mentioned before, we try and make this as affordable as possible. This is something that's too important for people to know about and too important for people to go through. And so you can get additional consultation via phone. It's $25 a half hour, but you continue to get ongoing support via email for free as you go through the service. So whatever is most appropriate and pertinent to the individual.
So what are some of the top things that you recommend that people need to fix in their home?
Yeah, so I think that the general rule of thumb, if I had to say, look, make sure you're doing this regardless of what's going on. Number one would be ventilation. So most homes are not ventilated enough. So, and what I mean by that, I think that the easiest explanation or example here is opening the windows, right? So particularly those in temperate climates, you want to leave it open as much as possible. Now we can't, in the areas where it gets really cold in the winter, really hot in the summer, the times that you're able to do that are more limited, but there are ways to go about ventilating your home very effectively and quickly and easily to make sure that you're fully exchanging the air that is getting polluted, removing those pollutants and bringing other air inside. So ventilation.
It's funny you say that because I live in Los Angeles, central Los Angeles, which is toxin hell on earth, basically. And I don't know why I live here. I got to move. So I bought a house here in central Los Angeles about 12 years ago. So it's just, it's nice to live in your own home. But so for me, intuitively, I thought, okay, the air in Los Angeles, very toxic. So let's shut everything up, shut all the windows and all the doors and keep those toxins out. But it's shocking that it shows in the research that our indoor environment is 2.5 times on average more toxic than the air outside. So how do you, what's like the, what I'm trying to say, what's the trade-off here? Like, what's the better choice to make? Open the windows
Yeah,
anyways?
no, it's a great question. So there are certain times or periods of the day that there is less pollution outside, and by outdoor pollution, we're primarily, now there are a number of things, but we're primarily talking about PM 2.5. So PM 2.5 is both an outdoor and indoor problem, whereas VOCs are an indoor problem only. So usually during rush hour is not the time to really open the windows, right? So it's after people settle in, after the cars are off the road. That's when you want to ventilate, or before they get in on the road, right? And so you can help reduce some of the PM 2.5 that comes in by timing it correctly. And then also, so there are two things that you can do to help remove any PM 2.5 that comes in. So one is get there's filters for HVAC system or room air filters that are HEPA grade that can remove any of the PM 2.5 coming in. And then there are also actually ventilation systems. So this isn't so you can open the windows, and that's an easy behavior. But for those that are in areas with higher pollution in general, as well as those that are not in as temperate a climate where they can open their windows year round, ventilation systems may be a good way to go. And what that is so there's an opening inside or around your home that this ventilator comes and draws air in through. As it draws air in through, it is actually exchanging the heat from inside the home, or cool in the summer inside the home, with the incoming air. So the air that's coming inside is about the same temperature as it was as the indoor environment. So you're not bringing in incredibly cold air during the winter or incredibly hot air during the summer. What these systems also do now is have a high efficiency filter that traps the PM 2.5 as it's coming into your home. And so this way you can make sure that whatever's coming in is removing the pollution that is found outside, and it's also an efficient way to do it. So that's another good option depending on where you live and what your lifestyle is.
And is there anything else you can recommend to us that you tell your clients, like some improvements they can make in their home to reduce pollution? I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is stop using toxic cleaners in your home.
Yeah, so there's the everyday products definitely add to the toxins inside the home and the results that we see on our monitor. And whenever somebody cleans with some toxic cleaners, and they've found now that not only so the toxic cleaners are actually an asthma trigger as well, and so you can and we see a lot of incredibly high spikes in VOCs when using some of these cleaners. And so that's a great option and something that you can easily change through just being smart about the everyday products you purchase. And of course there's also house DIY versions of cleaners as well, vinegar, baking soda, hydrogen peroxide. So, and then another thing I think we've already talked about, use your stove fan. 10% of people now use their stove fan. We've got to increase that. Now they're coming out with, hopefully one day there will be sensors where the stove knows and the stove fan knows when the stove is being used, and it'll automatically go on. Until then, we need to physically push that button to make sure we're not, we're reducing our exposure. And then finally, I think if you have a central forced HVAC system, there are usually low-cost, high-efficiency filters that you can get, and even they may even make some now that capture VOCs that are $20 per filter, and it will capture a lot of that PM 2.5. And if you use it in conjunction with opening your windows, you can bring air in and trap those pollutants at the same time.
And so when you have the monitor, is that on all the time? Do you like take it to different areas of your home to kind of see what's going on in that room, or how does that work?
Yeah, so yes, it's on all the time, and we found the reason for this is we found that just your pollutant levels change. So it changes from day to night, it changes from weekday to weekend, it changes from season to season. And so having an ongoing monitor can almost act as a watchdog for pollutant and toxin exposure on an ongoing basis. And because no matter how much there are things that can be happening that increase levels and maybe increasing them for an extended time that we want to know about and be able to do something about. The second question about moving the monitor around. Yes, so we also want to identify any pockets of pollutants or toxins. So usually what people do is put it inside the largest living area at first, or the room or area where they spend the most time, or if they're most concerned about, say, a child's bedroom, for example, they'll put it in there. And then they can move it from area to area, bedroom to bedroom, to get a very good, complete picture of the home. And then that also helps us in terms of guiding and to the right solution for that environment.
And so what about furniture? And so furniture is a big problem. A lot of people are buying, inexpensive furniture that, we know off gases, all kinds of different stuff. It's sprayed with flame retardants, especially mattresses as well. In California, there's a law, all the mattresses have to be sprayed with flame retardants. So what kind of problem does that pose? Is there any solution or advice you guys give about furniture purchases?
Yeah, so we look at large furniture items. I think as you mentioned, there's a couple different issues. So a lot of the formaldehyde that's released in a home comes from composite or pressed wood products, and that's also the least expensive and most common option inside homes now, right? And so we'll look at all the different areas and especially the largest items, beds, dining, couches, etc., flooring, etc., and then make recommendations on either how to how to remove those sources, and either replacements or just see what the risk level is as well.
So mold is a really huge problem in homes. And so does your monitor detect mold? Or, I mean, I know it's a very complex issue, and I assume beyond the scope of the monitor being able to detect that. It's complex testing. It's not easy. Can you talk a little bit about mold and why or why not you're able to monitor that?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we look for are digital signatures from the monitor. So mold will release spores that will be picked up by the PM 2.5 sensor, and there's usually a humid environment associated with mold growth. And so between humidity and PM 2.5 and how they track together, as well as with other readings, we'll be able to see, okay, well, how probable is mold present in the environment. Then if we see some issues, and then we'll also, what they've found is that through a number of studies, that the best way to actually determine the probability for mold is also a visual inspection. And so, and these visual inspections can cost hundreds of dollars. They're usually performed by someone whose incentive is to do work, right? And so what we do is we we actually walk somebody through a professional mold inspection for their home. And then that way they can rate the risk or probability of mold inside their home. And then finally, we also have mold tests. So we have a follow-up monitor or a follow-up test that can actually get, okay, if we're seeing a good probability, let's go ahead and test it. Let's see what's going on inside this environment, and then we can take it from there.
That's great. And so just you can, look at these indirect indications of mold and then recommend people to go ahead, hey, it's time to have a professional mold inspector come out and resolve the issue. So that's great. I mean, I think a lot of people aren't probably going to think to have a mold person come out and do all this work. And I think your monitor is very inexpensive. It's a very easy way to detect so many different problems in the home and give you, the information that you need to then go ahead and act on the information that you get with the monitor. I think it's just a terrific service.
Thank you. Yeah, no, we're trying to do as much as we can to help improve the environment, and pleased with the progress so far.
Is there anything else you want to mention that maybe we haven't covered during the podcast?
The only other thing is that so as a result of kind of making it easy and making it affordable, as well as the results that we're getting. So on average, people who go through the program see a 36% reduction in PM 2.5 and almost a 20% reduction in VOCs, and that's just through no and low cost recommendations. So really no added budget, and then you can get even higher decrease in exposure by doing other things. So as a result of that, we're now partnering with the American Lung Association. We're very excited about this partnership, and they've just seen the advantages and ability of the program to work and work well, and so that expect to see that coming out here in the next couple months.
That's fantastic. You keep mentioning asthma and reduction of asthma and reduction of, particulate matter and VOCs and things that can trigger asthma. And that's great for anyone listening that has breathing issues or asthma or any kind of health issue. We know that toxins are a big, if not the number one trigger of a lot of health issues and symptoms. And that's why I do this podcast. That's why you're doing what you're doing, because toxins are the primary driver of disease today. So many health experts are now saying that. And we have to be looking at the sources of these toxins and try to remove as much as we can that's within our control.
Absolutely right.
And I have a question I like to ask all of my guests. What do you think is the most pressing health issue in the world today?
Well, I'm probably a little biased. However, it's something that, by seeing what we were dealing with in our indoor environment, I would say the indoor environment, and this is kind of consistent with the EPA ranking it or World Health Organization ranking as the number one environmental health risk in the world is that indoor environment, and it's we can reduce pollution outside, we can reduce we can remove ourselves from toxicity in other environments, but we spend 90% of our time indoors. The bulk of that time is spent in our home. The exposure to these pollutants and toxins have chronic health-related issues that we know about, and so why it's such a pervasive, impactful issue that is still trying to gain traction and awareness, both within the community. I think that's going to change here as we learn more and more about the health impacts that it really has.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Tell the listeners where they can find you and learn more about you and get one of your HomeLab monitors in their home.
Sure. Yeah. So please go to HomeLab.com. There's a lot of information there. Please go. Feel free to go into our learning center as well as look at how the service works and could work for you, feel free to contact us with any questions. And another bonus here is that you can also identify your healthcare provider, and we can send the reports to your healthcare provider. And so be sure to, as you sign up, and mention healthcare provider, Wendy Myers or one of her team, and that way we can make sure that your healthcare professional and you are on the same page, and we can all work together to try and reduce your exposure and make you a healthier person and happier individual.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because I actually recommend HomeLab to all of my clients on a mineral power program. My clients are trying to detox their bodies, and detoxing their home is a big part of that. And you can do HomeLab without, being a mineral power client and, working on detoxing your body. You can, make a lot of progress in your health simply by detoxing your home.
Absolutely.
Well, Nate, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate you coming on and talking detox with me. I love having guests on talking about detoxification. It's my absolute favorite subject, and incredibly important for people to wake up and pay attention to the importance of detoxification, because it's going to have dramatic impacts on your long-term health if you don't pay attention to it. Everyone, thank you so much for listening to the Live to 110 podcast. My name is Wendy Myers. You can learn more about me at live to110.com. You can learn about my healing and detox program at mineralpower.com. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please leave us a review on iTunes with a podcast. So when people search, we come up in the rankings and we can help more people that way. Thanks so much for listening.